Right, last one here. Kamala Harris. You've never heard of her, but let me remind you of whom you may roughly remember. She's basically a pub trivia question when it comes to the 2020 election. She is a senator from California. She is a person who, in the first couple of debates when there was, 800 people up there, she became famous because she tore at Joe Biden for effectively being a racist, because he voted for policies that involved the busing of school students from poor black neighbourhoods into more middle-class white neighbourhoods. And she said that she was one of the kids that were affected by all of this. Well, that was then. And now there's a chance she might end up being his running mate. So she said this.
I have decided that I am, with great enthusiasm, going to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States. I believe in Joe. I really believe in him, and I have known him for a long time. One of the things that we need right now is we need a leader who really does care about the people and who can therefore unify the people. And I believe Joe can do that.
Jenna, this is what sends people nuts. You can't turn around and say, pick me to be the nominee because this guy is not only old and stale, but his policies were effectively racist and I was a victim of them. And then, once the field is clear, sort of like a Men in Black trick, funk, everyone will forget. I mean, how stupid do these people think people are?
I think her SNL persona is actually a lot more entertaining than her in real life. She definitely played the populist vote. She was out on all of the pride parades, and I think she was definitely deeply involved with the Obamas. So she definitely has the backing of that type of that wing of the Democrats. But what I find fascinating is that how she's, like you say, she's completely eradicated all of the things that she said before. She's like, oh, I could get a well-paying job, a job that doesn't do much, but it's got a great title, and I get to fly on Air Force One, so I'm banging for it.
Well, she also knows that if Biden ends up winning, he's going to be a dribbling fool by the end of 4 years. So should be a massive shot of taking over at some point during the 4 years, most likely.
Slightly ageist here.
No. I am definitely not an ageist person, but about him. I mean, as you were saying before, I want to ask about this here, where apart from anything else, right now we know there's a massive coalescing. The sort of figures behind have decided it's Biden. Shut up, get on with it. But what is really interesting is Bernie's vote's gone backwards in 4 years. Now you would think that after you've established yourself for 4 years, after supposedly the world is a whole lot woker, well, surprise, surprise, it ain't even woke in the woke party here, Rowan. But amazingly, the DNC, now they're at this sort of fine balance where they can basically say, look, people have voted, they didn't vote for him, no hands on the scales, but now they're changing the debates. The next debate that CNN is going to be hosting is, guess what? Two blokes sitting down, because they and the Sanders campaign says they're trying to do this to basically help out Biden from avoiding the pressure of literally having to stand for 2 hours. Now, fake or otherwise, that's the beginnings of the Bernie bros starting to say, you know what, I'm not going to vote for you, mate, because they picked you, we didn't get a fair shot. But what do you think explains Bernie falling away?
Well, the closer he gets to actually standing against Trump, the more the Dems realise that there's just no way he could possibly win. I mean, people forget, particularly younger people, forget that the idea of communism is so abhorrent to most Americans, particularly, 40 or over, that there's just no way someone with a communist track record would ever stand a hope in hell. So they know they've got to get behind Biden, and what they don't want is some kind of another Bernie win that throws the whole thing into chaos. But, Americans will not ever vote for a communist.
See, Bernie, when I look at him, isn't all that far away from Labor in Australia.
That's what I mean.
A lot of the things that he believes in, I believe in.
Hard left.
And, mate, I've been called a lot of things.
Not you, Labor.
Never been called
You still
that.
think you represent Labor. You don't. You're miles apart. You're closer to the Liberal Party now, Richard.
Nonsense. But I do believe that when I look at at Bernie Sanders, I see him as a tragic figure. I see him as somebody who really believes in himself, but who just doesn't have it, and who, in the end, represents nobody in America. You know that when you look at Americans, they think the Labor Party in Australia is way too far left. Like we would be considered extreme almost.
Let alone the Labor Party in the UK.
Well,
that's
exactly.
often cuckoo.
So you've got to you got to spare a thought for Bernie. I mean, he was always going to get crushed. He never had a hope in hell. I'm amazed that he kept going the way he did.
Well, also, Jenna, I was going to say, there is one thing that every election, it feels like we hear the same thing, right? Be it the United States or be it here, right? There's more money than ever before that the unions have raised and they're going to go after the Liberals. Or there's a surge of young people on the rolls. In America, the surge of young people... Look, it has never happened. It has never happened. It is this constant demographic fantasy that people serve up. And until it is proven right, we have to assume that history is right, and it is always wrong. So I think Bernie's problem, apart from anything else, is he wasn't able to go older, he wasn't able to go blacker. Instead, he was able to go Latino, and he's been able to have young people yell on Twitter. But guess what? Twitter ain't real life.
No, and I think that's the thing. We see it here as well with the Quiet Australians at the last federal election. When people can posture all they like on social media about how they want to reduce emissions and they want to help with renewables and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you can't pay your electricity bills or you can't afford to put petrol in your car or pay your rent, that is going to hamstring you completely. So that's what you think about when you go into the voting booth. And I think some of the interesting things with Sanders is that the only two people that have really backed him are the two of the kookiest ones in the Democratic race, which were Marianne Williamson, who is like some crystal-loving queen who I love because she's kooky as a nut,
a tree of
and
life
Bill de
there.
Blasio. Yeah, so he hasn't really had a lot of support from that respect. So I think he's had a crack, and back to the Senate he goes.
Rowan, you get the last word.
Yeah, just want to congratulate Richo for saying what I've been telling him for the last 2 years, that the Labor Party is far, far, far too far to the left in Australia. Thank you, Richo. It's only taken me 2 years to convince you, but we got there finally. Hallelujah. Headlines, Richo writes off Labor Party as too far to the left. Headlines tomorrow morning. Here we go.